I remember what the original welcoming committee said to my parents when we moved in. Not everyone who looks at the Whistler dies, but even those that live have the light go out of them, and the rest of their lives are full of misfortune. A million little tragedies. I think Holden's parents must have looked either to comfort him if they did not believe or share the burden if they did. I watch Nola some days, happy and young and alive, and I wonder if I had been slower, if she looked out the window that night, would I have looked too? To comfort her? To share that burden? I am glad I don't have to find out. We still live in that house, in that neighborhood. We still hear our Whistler walking past every night. The blessings, the luck, the good things here are too good to leave. But we are careful. We do not have friends over to spend the night anymore. And my dad hides the key to the blinds very, very well. Not that I have gone looking. Some things you just do not need to look for. Story 2. Posted by LeRockstron4. I work as a highway driver and have a strange set of rules to follow. Yes, that's right, I work as a highway driver. Despite how outrageous it sounds, nobody realizes how important it is. Highway drivers are well known for a reason, but the public can't know about the existence of it. My job is simple, to drive on highway roads from start to end. At least that is what you think. Right? Not at all. I drive on highways to test the safety of the roads and look out for killer monsters so that you can drive on the road safely, aside from vehicle accidents. I became a highway driver when I saw how much the pay was, and I have been on the job for 5 years now. On my first day, I was appointed to some busy highway, I cannot specify, and issued a set of rules made just for that highway. I was to reach there by 9 p.m. and stop at the checkpoint, which was handled by command. I did not expect it to be such a nightmarish job. As I was driving on the highway itself, I was instantly hit by the realization that the roads were concerningly deserted. These roads would usually be filled with cars from day to night, but seeing it empty made me feel uneasy nevertheless. When I reached the checkpoint, I was told by the staff on duty that roadblocks were set up to prevent any civilians from interrupting the road tests, which only confused me further. As I had reached here 20 minutes early, I waited in the staff room and mindlessly scrolled in all 4 directions on my phone, as I didn't know what I was in for, yet I prepared myself for the worst. I was to drive a police car issued by the local police department and had to wear the uniform, which was such a difficult task for me to the point I had to ask for assistance from a colleague. Before I forget, here's the set of rules. Highway Security Agency, we drive in the danger, so you may drive home. Guidelines for highway, redacted, Expressway Revision 2.4 to 6916. Redacted, as a road length of 100 kilometers. The 1 to 10 kilometers distance is relatively safe, and you are permitted to stop at the shoulders for a short break. However, it is strongly advised to remain inside of your vehicle regardless of your situation. From 10 to 15 kilometers, level 0 anomalous events will start to occur. At 11 kilometers, check that all your doors and windows are locked and all electrical systems are in order through the screen. At 13 to 14 kilometers, you may hear a voice behind you, despite there being no one in the passenger seats. You are allowed to respond to these voices as they are designated friendly. These entities will announce their lead by 14 kilometers and remind you to lock the doors. At 15 kilometers, you may hear tapping on the windows. Whatever you do, ignore them. Playing loud music will help to drown out the tapping. If you don't hear the tapping anymore, tune down the radio. 3.15 to 25 kilometers is potentially safe. You are allowed to leave your vehicle for a toilet break during this distance, but remember to have your gun on hand and leave your engine on. Should you hear screaming from behind you, immediately get in the car in 5 minutes. This is how long the entity will take to reach you. If you didn't leave the engine on and find that your engine won't start, initiate maintenance systems through the screen 1 minute before the end of 5 minutes. If the time is up, immediately take the suicide pill. It is a better outcome than what it would do to you. At 23 to 25 kilometers, check that all your doors, windows are locked and electronics are in order. 4. The temporary auxiliary checkpoint, TAC, will be at 50 kilometers, another 25 kilometers away from you. Only at 25 to 40 kilometers will you be experiencing higher level 1 anomalous events. From 25 to 30 kilometers, you will see a man wearing the same uniform as you standing beside a patrol car similar to yours near the shoulder of the road. This man is a highway manager who will check in on you. If what you see does not match with what was stated, immediately drive off and do not look back for X. Once he waves you over, stop for him and allow him to enter. He will ask you questions about your safety and well-being, in which you will answer honestly. This man will remain in your car until you reach the TAC. However, if any unrelated, personal question is asked, immediately press the assistance button for X. For X, if the man you see does not match with what's stated, example, bloody uniform and unmarked vehicle, fully black clothed and no vehicle, etc., you are in imminent danger. Drive away as fast as you can. The entity will attempt to chase you on foot or by car, in which you will respond to by deploying spikes or firing at it. The entity will only stop chasing you when you reach the corner at 30.5 kilometers, so slowing it down is the only option. If the man asks any unrelated question, not related to what was stated, you are in danger. Do not respond to these questions. Once you realize this, immediately press on the assistance button without attracting attention from the entity. The auxiliary patrol car will be there to pick up your body in the morning. From 40 to 48 kilometers, if the radio starts to play static noises, do not turn it off. Immediately stop the car and close your eyes, do not open them at all. Even if you hear someone calling your name, ignore it. They are entities. Once you feel tapping on your left shoulder, the entities will never tap. It is safe to drive again. If you see people in the back seats, your eyes on the road and ignore their presence. If any of them start screaming, it means they know you noticed them. Immediately shoot at all 3 of the entities before they retaliate. Manager will assist. Once they are dead, leave their bodies on the road. At 49 to 50 kilometers, check all doors, windows are locked and electronics are in order. Should the right back door be unlocked, notify the manager. He will dispose of the entity in the car at the TAC. 5. At the TAC, you will hand the vehicle over to the manager, whom will incinerate it alongside the entity in the back seat. From there you will be excused for a 35-minute break while your vehicle is prepared. 6. From 50 to 75 kilometers onwards, you will encounter level 2 anomalous events. When driving from 50 to 55 kilometers, your vehicle may start to malfunction, doors unlocking and locking, radio playing static noises, etc. When this occurs, immediately kill the engine, open the hood and using a knife, exterminate the entity you find in the hood. From 55 to 60 kilometers, the engine may die abruptly and the temperature in the car decreasing to below 0 degrees Celsius. Immediately start the car as fast as possible. Do not look at the back seats, even if you hear something calling you. It will disappear by 61 kilometers. From 60 to 65 kilometers, the lamp posts may start flickering. Stop the vehicle and hide in the trunk without exiting the car. Try your best to not make any sounds, as it will alert the omni entity of your presence. If it roars, it has already noticed you. After 5 minutes, it is safe for you to drive on. From 65 to 75 kilometers, you may see entities that appear similar to your loved ones. Whatever you do, do not look at them. Do not speed up, it will know that you know. Even if you feel breathing behind your neck, focus on the road. 7. At this point, any entity in your vehicle would have left. Conduct a routine system check on your car through the screen, doors, electronics. From 75 kilometers to 100 kilometers, you may start to encounter level 2 and 3 anomalous events. At 75 to 85 kilometers, the road ahead of you may appear to crumble. This is a psychic omni entity. Do not stop your vehicle nor exit it, as the entity is trying to lure you out. Continue driving, regardless of what appears in front of you and what you hear on the radio. After 85 kilometers, it will leave you alone. From 85 to 90 kilometers, you may see a checkpoint. A major red flag to check is whether the lights are all switched off. Do not stop your vehicle and drive through it if you are not sure. Check the distance left on the screen. However, if you stop your vehicle and enter, we will not be able to recover you. At 90 to 94 kilometers, a horde of entities may appear in front of you. Drive straight through them and do not look back, as it will only cause them to chase after you. If this happens, the only way to rid of them is to let the officers at the last checkpoint take them out. From 94 to 98 kilometers, it is relatively safe. However, do not stop your vehicle for more than 8 minutes, as it will alert the entities of your presence. At 98 to 100 kilometers, a man will manifest in front of the car. Do not recognize him, do not even acknowledge his presence. Focus on the road. Once you have finished your shift, pass the vehicle over to the maintenance staff at the final checkpoint, and from there, you will be permitted to clock out. I was superstitious, but at least to a certain extent. It was difficult to believe that monsters existed in this world, but then again, it was the government we're talking about. I knew it wasn't in their best interest to prank their own citizens. That's when I realized I was in for a hell of a ride. I intently stared at the patrol car for a good few seconds. Considering that it would be the only barrier protecting me from certain death, I didn't waste any time checking for any structural defects. My maintenance session was abruptly interrupted by the checkpoint supervisor's presence, who intended to inform me of my code name. The moment he left, I immediately got in the car, took a deep breath, and started the engine. As it turns out, everything that would be normally automated by electronics had to be manually controlled by the maintenance department. Their reason? They didn't want to be caught in the middle of a power outage while monsters were probably roaming outside the walls. "This is Frogsman 1 to maintenance, requesting to open garage door 2, I said while trying to stop my fear from messing up my sentences. The moment the garage door stopped moving, I instantly stepped down on the pedal and drove into the night. I was to maintain a constant 45 kilometers per hour speed and couldn't speed up nor slow down since it would affect the schedule. However, I was allowed to do so if my life was in danger. To break the silence, I turned on the radio and played my playlist, which acts as my company for the time being, at least until I reach Guideline 4. The first 10 kilometers was relatively peaceful. However, I had this strong feeling that I was being watched. I maintained shifting my focus from the road to the screen D then, since I had to keep track of the distance so that I could prepare myself for the inevitable. That was when I heard a voice behind me. "You're new, I can tell," it said. I immediately tensed up and was shocked for a bit, until I remembered the first event which I would encounter. "Why yeah," I muttered back. The entity would then go on to ask me about life, all that basic stuff. It didn't take me long to get used to its presence, and I could feel the atmosphere relax. I only learned near the end of the conversation that the thing's name was Hallgate, or at least that's what he wanted to be referred by. The moment I reached 14 kilometers, Hallgate made his leave. "And remember to lock your doors," Hallgate said with a ghostly voice. "You don't want these bastards to hitchhike in your vehicle." I could see Hallgate opening and closing the left passenger door, which looked as the door had a mind of its own. This terrified me a little bit, since it was a first for me. I mean, I had never spoken to a disembodied voice before ever in my life. It didn't take me long to hear the tapping on the window, but according to the guidelines, if I didn't acknowledge it, it can't harm me. So, that's what I did. The consistent tapping disappeared after a few minutes, and I took a sigh of relief. I glanced at the screen, which read 18 kilometers. Since it was safe to get out, I took it as the calm before the storm, as the next safety distance was much further away. I stopped the car, got out, and took a breather. I only realized how cold it was in the car when I felt the drastic increase in temperature outside. I then took a quick piss near the road shoulder. I was in the midst of finishing up when I heard it. That damn scream. The scream sounded so natural yet inhumane. In a state of panic, I immediately ran back to the car without pulling up my pants, almost tripping over. However, when I tried to open the door, I was met with an exceeding force pulling it in the opposing direction. At this point, I was terrified out of my mind and didn't care about the possibility of there being an entity in the car. I foolishly punched the window open with my bare fist and jumped inside, ignoring the shards on the seat. I could feel them stabbing my backside, but the pure terror of the screaming entity overcame it to the point I was focused on getting the hell out of there. If anything, temporary pain wasn't as important as permanent death. It took a few tries to get the car to start, but once it did, I dashed out of there. I looked back and saw something behind me. When I squinted my eyes, I managed to catch a glimpse of its appearance. The thing was about 2 meters tall, had a slender and elongated build, and was pale-skinned. It let out deafening screams irregularly, which confirmed that I was getting the hell away from it. It didn't take me long to realize that the entire time I was staring at it, it had been crawling on all fours. The instant realization came when it stood up and started running, with its arms swinging behind it like a rag doll and its legs now taking longer distance steps. The change of posture resulted in a 4-meter-tall creature towering above me. I knew that this creature would be the end of him since it was only 100 meters away from the car, and it was destined to eat me before I could reach the TAS. In a desperate attempt, I unsheathed my pistol and blindly fired at it. And then the screaming stopped. I looked behind through the broken side window and saw that the thing had dropped to the floor. Holy shit, did I kill it? I thought out loud. I wanted to check its body, but my instincts told me to drive on and not look back, which I happily complied to doing. My thoughts were all over the place, but one goal kept me focused: to take a break at the TAC. The screen displayed 26 kilometers, and then I saw him 200 meters away from me standing at the road shoulder. "This is HMG Deston, stop the car behind me, over," a voice echoed from the radio. Because I was being tailed by a bloodthirsty monster just moments earlier, I was heavily wary of the person in front of me. There wasn't any way which I could differentiate him from a murderous entity on this highway. The moment he entered the car, my entire body tensed up. "Alright, I'll just get straight to the point," he said with a suspicious tone. "Have you encountered any life-threatening anomalous entities so far?" I replied immediately, trying to hide my fear from butchering my words. A few questions later, the survey was complete. Only now did I notice the guy's peculiar movements. He never sat still. He was regularly looking around. He was wringing his hands non-stop, and that was just the tip of the iceberg. His tone when he spoke resembled that of someone who was panicking and annoyed at the same time. He was starting to worry me, but I tried to sympathize with him. He's probably seen a lot while on duty, and I can't blame him for his behavior. I then decided to break the long-endured silence by asking him a question. "So, how long have you been here?" I confidently asked. He replied, albeit stuttering, "Me? About 4 years." Shortly after, his nervous movements changed to an ominous, brick-like posture. His face slowly turned into a grin, and it freaked me out. He then asked me with a completely different tone, "Anyways, how's your father doing, especially since your brother died?" I'm fucked. How the hell did he know my family? I knew that this bastard was going to be the end of me. I had to answer him, or else he'll know that I know. If anything, I'll have to divert its attention away from me. I unwisely replied to his question as lengthily as I could to buy myself time to alert HQ. In the middle of my irrelevant rambling, I steadily clicked the button while it wasn't looking. I couldn't tell if it worked since there wasn't any alert, but all I could do now is pray that I'll suffer a painless death. The screen read 32 kilometers. For some reason, I felt a jolt of life and will to live. I had to survive the shift. My course of action would be to somehow kick this thing out of the car. It wasn't wearing seatbelts, and distance myself as far away from it. It was a long shot, but I didn't care. When the thing wasn't staring at me, I unlocked the left door and executed the plan. I quickly stopped the car, and in the process of doing so, unlocked the door on the thing's side by swiftly stretching my left arm to the door handle and forced it forward as hard as I could. With the combined force of halting the car and pure muscles, I managed to push the thing out of the car, but it wasn't over. The thing then started sprinting at me, and that was the cue for me to get the fuck out of there.